I've mentioned this on this podcast before if you're a longtime listener, of Meek Mill talking about Drake getting peed on when they were beefing. It's like, whether that's true or not, that's not damaging. It's like it's unsavory, but it's not
unsavory.
It's not gonna, end his career.
Yeah.
These are allegations that are damaging.
Yes.
And damaging from a perception point of view, but also damaging in terms of like criminal activity.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Soundbites, the part of the Album Mode podcast. We're talking about the music, the culture, the internet, and the lawsuits that exist in the music culture that we have today. My name is Demar Grant, a.k.a. King Grant, a.k.a. The Bunny. And I'm here joined by my esteemed co-host, co-creator, Adriel Smiley, a.k.a. AdrielSmiley.com, a.k.a. Adriel Smiley Official. Adriel, we're back talking about one of the biggest artists of our time.
Yeah.
Drake. And he has decided to stick him up with UMG, his label, defamation lawsuit. Give us the details. Why? How? What's going on? Why is Drake deciding to go to battle with his own label? I thought battling with your label was a young buck thing, a young boy thing, young girl thing. This is when you do on album cycle number 2, number 3, maybe you're trying to get out of the deal. We're on album cycle number 3051 with Drake. Why is he beefing with his label?
Two things I wanted to mention before I actually go into the suit itself is, of course, it was rumored before this battle started when he was on tour with J. Cole that he was renegotiating with UMG. Now, how to say everyone's aware, but if you are aware, his last deal was $400 million. If you guys know how successful Drake has been, he obviously wants more. That deal at that time was one of the biggest deals the music industry had ever seen. And when you talk about him being akin to Michael Jackson, that's what I think of, is having a deal where you basically keep the lights on in the building. And so that's the context of this whole lawsuit is that this is all going to affect the negotiations of his future deal. And why I mention that is a lot of artists are selling their entire catalog nowadays to get a lump sum of money. They're not getting $400 million. And he's getting that money without selling his catalog.
Yeah.
So that kind of lets you know the weight that Drake holds in terms of, negotiating power and, where he stands. Now, this defamation suit is against the label and Not Like Us. And the most important part of this, and I want to say that, this is different from what happened earlier, is he is, upset about them for even putting out Not Like Us. Now, I know there's a bit before about them promoting Not Like Us.
Yeah.
But I'm going to read you a part from page 3 in here. And he said, "This lawsuit is not about the artist who created Not Like Us." These are direct words from the lawsuit. "It is instead entirely about UMG, the music company, that decided to publish, promote, exploit, and monetize allegations that it understood were not only false, but dangerous." So that right there, publish, promote, exploit, and monetize. It's like you guys even putting this out is what we're mad about as Drake's team. Now, the one thing I wanted to highlight from this in terms of what this is multiple times in this suit, and even in this part in page 3, he says that it understood were false. He mentions many times, or his lawyers mentioned many times in this suit, that UMG is aware that these allegations were false. I think that is very important here because these allegations are not small. And the fact that these allegations happened, was it 8 months ago, 6 months ago now? And there's been no legal action, no investigation. That leads me to believe that there is some kind of understanding from someone that these are false. Because he mentions it also in here that when they tried to connect UMG to the Diddy case, UMG came out and made several statements and legal action stating we were not a part of that. We didn't help Diddy. We weren't a part of that. So I think that kind of the actions around Not Like Us don't kind of lead to there being any credence to those claims. Of course, there's the rumors online of Drake with young women, similar to Leonardo DiCaprio or Jerry Seinfeld. But that is
Young Seinfeld's a little bit different. It's a little different, but continue.
Yeah, both iffy, but separate from actual pedophile allegations.
Mm-hmm.
Pedophile allegations are more akin to a Michael Jackson or an R. Kelly. And those men face legal action. And so that is the part here that I kind of realized from this is he mentioned several times that the label knows these are not true.
Right.
And the actions after these allegations, you know, have not been kind of commensurate with them being true. Because I think in a normal world, quote unquote, if someone has pedophile allegations, you know, we're going to...
Yeah, that's getting investigated.
You know what I mean? Like, I think about the police raiding A$AP Rocky's home a few months back when he was accused of attempted murder that he's on trial for right now.
Yeah.
And I said, you know, raiding someone's house for attempted murder, I think you would raid someone's house for them being a pedophile.
Yeah.
So that part to me feels like there's almost more of a claim on Drake's side that it's like the label knows that these are false allegations.
Right.
And it still puts that record out.
Yeah, but the thing to me about this lawsuit that is really, how do I even put this in the correct? Is it makes the situation weird to me, even in like a hip hop culture thing. Is like if Drake wins this suit, let's say he finds or the judge finds UMG liable, responsible for defamation against Drake's character in the ways that are outlined in this lawsuit, that would forever alter rap beef, hip hop battles. That would just alter it so completely and so dramatically that it would get to a point of like, I don't think it would be able to happen anymore. Because
why? I wouldn't know why you think that. Because I think that there's a part of this where what other rapper could you see suing their label? Because I don't think Drake sues the label if he had his deal already.
Okay.
If his deal is signed before this all happens and it's whatever, $900 million.
Yeah.
Is Drake still suing the label?
That's true. Okay. Because also in the lawsuit, I love that we have the actual lawsuit to turn toward.
Yeah.
It says that his deal is supposed to come up for renegotiation in 2025.
Yeah.
Like I think it was like spring 2025, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, in 2025.
And like that dropped in March.
And like that dropped in March of 2024, right? So they're like, they're Drake's team.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to make sure I'm defining who they. Drake's team, Drake's side is basically alleging UMG used Not Like Us and bolstered it in the way that a record label does, where you're trying to playlist it and shit like that and try to promote the artist, get them on the Super Bowl, that your record label wants to do that.
Yeah.
But they're saying, Drake's team is saying, they used it as like as two birds to kill one stone. It's like, oh, we can promote our artists and have it be huge and all this type of stuff, but it will also drive the price down in the negotiation when it comes to 2025 when Drake and UMG has to go back to the table. So that's why Drake is pissed.
Mm-hmm.
Really, ultimately,
yeah. When
we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars, we're talking UMG getting sued, we're talking about Drake and stuff like this. We're talking about money. Like we can all pretend like it's all about the artist. No,
it's about money.
We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. It's about the money. Mm-hmm. So they're like, you're trying to sabotage our leverage in the negotiation illegally, right? And do I think that this would happen after the deal got negotiated? Maybe.
I don't think so.
But regardless, just the fact that this is happening,
yeah,
is kind of crazy because in hip hop, I don't know why I don't know why I've become this person where
you have become that person.
In hip hop, you're not suing people after the beef, bro. But like that's ridiculous.
I agree with you, and I said this off mic earlier, but that's how I've always felt about this. Is like that's not hip hop to sue the label.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't Nas suing the label over Jay dropping Takeover. Like that would just be crazy. Mm-hmm. Like I could never see that happening. But I think, you know, Drake has been omnipresent in a way we've never seen an artist be before. Like Jay at his peak retired and came back. Kanye at his peak got exiled by Taylor Swift and came back. We've never seen an artist be the biggest streaming artist 15 years in a row, 12 months out the year, regardless of what happens. That's never happened before. And so I think it's almost in a place where he's such a big artist that the allegations are like going under the radar of how crazy they are. Because I think I've tried to look at it in a way where I look at all the past rap beefs and I try and take the winner and say who we thought the winner was. You know, let's use Nas and Jay, for example. In the Nas and Jay beef, if Nas calls Jay a pedophile and that song goes number one, is Jay-Z who he is today? Probably not. And, you know, attach it to anyone else. And it's like, that's almost like an allegation that is like you can't overlook.
Right.
And I think because Drake is such a big artist, we're like, he'll be fine. Maybe his image will never recover. But the allegation is just like, it's almost like the allegation is what it takes to beat him. So it's not as, you know, ludicrous as in a sense.
Right.
When it's like the allegation on its face, take out like the context of like who it's towards and the actual battle, it's like, I couldn't understand that allegation being the issue. And I think that's maybe the part of it that someone mentioned online of like, It's Not Like Us is the same song, goes number one, but it's nothing in there about Drake being a pedophile. It's about him being a deadbeat dad. Is this lawsuit still happening? And I don't think so.
I don't think so, no.
And it's like, I think that's the part of it where, and I hate that I'm defending Drake in this way, but it's like,
I know, we become the people we hated. I'm here like, this is not hip hop when I'm like always the person who's not that person.
But I think reading this, like this file, what really stood out to me is like, we're almost making Drake exempt from like the rules of a normal human. And we're all doing it like subconsciously, you know, like even us saying like this is not hip hop, because the climate of this happening is like as we are covering Diddy every week on the podcast.
Yeah.
So it's like putting Drake in the Diddy group. Like, what person's gonna think that's okay to do? You know what I mean? Like, and we're just being like, Drake, why are you so mad about that? Like, that's how we're acting when it's like we were on this podcast for weeks upon weeks upon weeks talking about how nasty Diddy was.
Yep.
And Kendrick put Drake right beside him. And we said, Drake, what's the problem with that?
Why are you so upset?
And I think it's like, and I think when I realized that in myself, I was like, even our reaction being that way, it's not like we think pedophilia is light, because that's not what we're trying to say. But it's like Drake has become such a big star in our brains that it's like we're like, you have nothing to be mad about.
Yeah,
no matter
you'll be
what.
all right.
You'll be all right no matter what. And so I think that's the part of this where, in terms of like this actually affecting, you know, Drake and his legacy, you're right. This is not hip hop. So I think that's a pretty big part of it. But it's like, I don't know. Like, it's almost where two things can be true, where I don't know if Drake is the one to fight this battle, because Drake is such a big artist. It's hard to like feel bad for him. When it's like, I know I use the example of like Beanie Sigel and Jadakiss, where it's like, if Beanie Sigel called Jadakiss a pedophile, we're going to be like, yo, what the hell's wrong with you? Like, you hate him, but chill out. You know what I mean? Because it's like this lawsuit, and again, this all could be lies, but multiple times Drake's team says, not only do they call the claims false, which you expect, of course, but they say multiple times that UMG knows the claims are false.
And they're trying to proliferate it.
And I think that's a part of it where it's like, you guys can beef, but if I know that you're not a pedophile, for me to call you that is like a statement that you may never recover from. Yeah. And it's kind of why Jay-Z is having this huge battle that he's having right now with his case, where it's like, you can call me a bunch of different things and say you don't like me, but this is a statement people don't recover from. So I think that it's almost like a credit to Drake's success, in the sense that we're like, it's a state no one recovers from, but Drake will recover. Yeah. Which is crazy to think, but like that's really how we're behaving, which is like, you know, wild within itself.
Yeah, I think you're challenging me with this one mentally, because there's almost an element of like, is it hyperbole? Right? Is what Kendrick Lamar said about the pedophile thing, is it hyperbole, yes or no? Because then some people would be like, yeah, obviously, but then some people are like, no, right? And then hyperbole has to be part of your art, or at least, and it's definitely part of hip hop. 100% hyperbole is part of hip hop, right? So then you're getting like, is that allowed? Like, are we allowed to make hyperbole about people when we don't know, if we don't know it's true? But if we don't know it, if we know it's not true, are we allowed to make the hyperbole about that? And if so, is there like a red line that you cannot hyperbolize, or is like, that's what I'm saying, you know? And we, since we all know it's not true, but we know it's damaging, is it defamation for real? Right? It's like, that's where we're like in this messy space.
I think it's defamation regardless. I think it's more like, is UMG wrong for allowing Kendrick to put the song out?
Right.
Because labels let rappers put songs out with lies in them all the time.
Exactly.
This is obviously a much bigger lie than just, I have 20 cars. Like, this is a bigger lie than that. But I think there's two parts in this lawsuit that really stand out to me. And I also understand that the perception is almost larger than the facts.
Yes, absolutely.
In this case, especially when we're talking about like, this is not hip hop. It's like, you know, this is not hip hop is almost not enough to like talk about pedophilia. You know what I mean? Like, it's separate. And on page 7, he talks about being on a flyer with YouTuber Jack Dorsey, who was sentenced to 3 years in prison for sexual assault. And the caption says, Canadian sex predators got to stick together, which is absolutely nasty. And then on the first page, they kind of outline his home being vandalized or invaded 3 times. Yeah. Which I don't even remember the one time.
Yeah, the security guy getting shot.
Yeah, but it happened 2 times after that. And so that's a part of it where it's like, they didn't know that was happening, and I didn't know that it was so often. I don't know how that's connected to Not Like Us, but why I bring that up is because another multiple times, he refers to Not Like Us calling for retribution. And why I brought up that in the early part is because, again, this allegation is happening. When this happened to other stars who were as big as he was, legal action followed. Whether it's Diddy facing legal action right now, R. Kelly facing legal action, or Michael Jackson facing legal action. Yeah. Drake has faced no legal action as of yet. Yeah. And I think he's he's definitely upset, but he's even more upset because in his mind, the song is asking for retribution. The song is saying, he likes little kids, go get him, lock him up. And I think that like the part of this where we're talking about hyperbole is there's a large portion of people that are like treating him differently because of this song, believing the allegations in this song. And I think like usually when it comes to like hyperbole and allegations, they're almost mostly harmless. Like I've mentioned this on this podcast before, if you're a longtime listener, of Meek Mill talking about Drake getting peed on when they were beefing. It's like, whether that's true or not, that's not damaging. You know, it's like it's unsavory, but it's not unsavory. It's not gonna, you know, end his career. Yeah. These are allegations that are damaging. Yes. And damaging from a perception point of view, but also damaging in terms of like criminal activity.
Right. I think one of the things that is really interesting to me is that when it comes to Drake in the situation, I'm trying to remember what the fuck I wanted to say. Hold on a second. Fuck, what did I want to say? Hold on. So one of the things that was really interesting to me in this scenario was that the things that they're claiming that UMG did by like, oh, they botted the streams to make the song explode. You know, they try to push Kendrick Lamar and the song in the Super Bowl so that it can even have more, it can even cause more damage to the relationship and thus the monetary value and et cetera, et cetera. These are things that just like, if you just cut out what the song is about and just like make it like, my artist went number one, huge, massive. We poured the gasoline on the fire. You know, we botted the streams, whether or not they botted them, whatever. They, you know, playlisted it, you know, trying to get a bunch of people to put on playlists and stuff like that. This is all things that your label does. They do that.
Regular promo.
That's exactly, right? It's the regular promo, right? So on its face, or not on his face, but it's just like, on his face, it's just like, song number one, my artist is huge. I'm going to try to playlist it. I want to get him on the Super Bowl. I want to play on every radio show. I want him to be on every YouTuber's channel. So I want them to be able to react to it, and we're not claiming their videos. That's all shit that happens. Songs like what's a good example? Look at Me with XXXTentacion and like Zias and his friend. I forgot his friend's name. Forgive me. When they played that song on their YouTube channel, it went bonkers, right? That's when that song blew up, and then obviously X, was huge at the time, but it became even bigger. So that's, you also want YouTubers reacting to your music and shit, right? So these are all things that the label, they do this on just like a normal, regular basis. But for you to have the defamation claim against that because you think that what is in the lyrics is so damaging to you and your credibility and your reputation and stuff like that. If you win, then that says like a really weird and really odd precedent. And I don't know what that means for a label anymore, because you're like, oh yeah, you stream botted, you whitelisted, and you try to push your artists onto the thing. It's like, that's what a label's supposed to do. That's what they're supposed to do.
I guess we're going to see if those things are separate, because I guess to me, the actual defamation of the song feels like such a small part of how people are thinking about this because it's Drake, like I said before. When it's like, let's go back to Drake versus Meek Mill. Back to back, there's nothing defamatory in there. Like, there's no case for Meek Mill to say, he said it was my girl's tour when it actually was a joint tour. Like, that would just not be worth it. So it's like, I think in a way we're kind of taking out the claim when it's like, how often are people calling other people pedophiles? That's not like a thing that happens all the time. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a normal thing that happens. It's not like something that goes under the cover. You know what I'm saying? Like, because it's like, back in the day in hip hop, that was like the big diss was calling someone else gay, which is not a crime.
Yeah,
it's like, it may hurt your image in hip hop, but it's not a crime. So maybe someone may do a lawsuit because, like, I think about when 50 and Game were beefing, and there was that picture of Game on the stripper pole. Yeah, and people thought it was real for a second. It's like, that may hurt your image. Yeah, but it's not a crime. Yeah, this is not just a crime, but a heinous crime. And think about how we talk about R. Kelly. That's where he's putting Drake in that box. And I think, again, if it's true, there should be legal action. And if it's not true, there also should be legal action. That's kind of how I feel. Because I think we're in a place where we just can't, like, Drake, we can't look at Drake as someone. Maybe if this was 5 years from now and we hadn't heard from him, we could, like, not look at him as a big artist. Drake is such a big artist that he's, again, omnipresent. Yeah. So there's no, like, even if Drake went to jail today, we probably think he'd still be the most streaming artist at the end of the year. Yeah. So I think that's the biggest part. We can't separate everyone's brain from that. That it's like the pedophile accusation is almost not as big as I think it should be. Because in my mind, again, any other artist, if they're accused of being a pedophile, they're not standing for it. So it's like, why is it different for Drake?
But you know what's interesting? When you said another artist, they wouldn't stand for it. I think if this was pretty much any other artist, and especially earlier in hip hop's lifespan, it would get physical. Between the two, it would be this. We'd be talking about somebody, somebody's like doing an interview at a radio show, and then like Kendrick is doing an interview at a radio show, and then OVO goons are running up in the building and trying to suplex him through the table or some shit.
Even if this was 24-year-old Kendrick and 25-year-old Drake, maybe it gets physical. Yeah, and so it's like
they'll be at like the Grammys or some shit, and we're talking about like they're sitting so far away from each other, or they got seated at the same table and a fight breaks. That's the type of shit that we'd be talking about if this was like 2005 or if it was like 1999. One of them would be dead.
Oh, 100%. And
like, that's not even like really a joke. Like this would get to a level of serious vitriol.
And I think the last thing that I'm gonna say before we wrap here is like the past year, I've just found it so odd from both sides that these men are accusing each other of heinous crimes. Like crimes against women and crimes against children. Both sides. Whoever you want to believe whoever you want to believe. But I think that part of this has gone so under the radar. And I realized that Drake is a part of this because, one, he like kind of begged Kendrick to come outside.
I know
he mentioned some Taylor Made.
It's a little bit his fault. I don't want to victim blame, but
it's partly his fault for sure. But I think I go back to Drake's past two large feuds with Pusha T and Meek Mill, and it's like Drake, quote unquote, hiding his kid from the world is not a crime. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Drake saying Pusha T is a fake gangster is not a crime. You see, does that make any sense?
I get you.
These guys are accusing each other of crimes that people in jail don't approve of.
I get you.
So it's like, it's again, and I think this is like part of the culture that I'm maybe uncomfortable with is like, even as hip hop fans, our fandom has made these artists almost larger than life, or where it's almost like, man, I love the music. Commit whatever crime you want, or call him whatever you want to call him. I don't care what you use, because that's what this is really giving on both sides. Because in reality, I think they both lied. I think they're both not telling the truth. And I think they both probably have skeletons in their closet that didn't come out in this battle at all. And
wouldn't be surprised by that.
And I think the part that's really, really sad is to realize that we care more about what hip hop is supposed to mean, quote unquote, than the actual, crime itself.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's fake because Dr. Dre did the Super Bowl 2 years ago.
Facts.
So I just feel like we're all being fake in a sense by what we care about and don't care about, because either we believe Drake's a pedophile and there should be legal action, or we don't believe he's a pedophile and it's like, Kendrick, don't be calling a man a pedophile, it's not a pedophile. But none of us are saying none of those things. So close this out, please.
Yeah, I think that my last thing on this is that if you read the lawsuit, the defamation complaint, you'll see just like a series of social media posts about Drake. He's like the big three with him, Harvey Weinstein, and who was the other person in that photo? Harvey Weinstein and Jeffrey Epstein. So that's a big three you do not want to be a part of. So I can see why he's very upset. I can see what's extreme. And you can see in that video or in that picture, it has 47,000 views. It's on Twitter, so we know the views are a little bit juiced because it's Twitter. But yeah, so that's a interesting and a very, very weird scenario. If Drake wins, I'm just curious on what's gonna happen, because again, if he wins, then I think it's kind of the death of rap beef, because you're not gonna be able to say, you're not gonna be able, because there's gonna be a line in the saying, you're not gonna be able to say certain stuff. And people
this was already there.
People are gonna try and sue you.
No, it's the point. This was already there. We have 50 years of hip hop. No one calling us a pedophile. That line was already there.
Okay,
that's what I'm trying to say.
It was invisible though, but now it's red.
No, but
it was invisible before, but now it's a red line.
This is a line that should be there. This is something you don't play with. Is my point. Like no one should have been doing this in the first place.
Okay.
So it's like when Drake was saying Pusha went too far for mentioning his kid. That's I don't know if I agree with that. Okay. But this is actually too far. But
okay. All right. So let us know what you think about in the comments. Thank you everybody for tuning into Album Mode. Make sure you follow us on the interweb at Album Mode Pod, on Instagram at Album Mode Pod, on Twitter at Album Mode, TikTok at Album Mode, here on YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe and give us 5 stars, not a single star less, when it comes to any sort of podcast listening platform that you listen to us on. And Adriel, I want you to know yourself and know your worth.
Later days.